Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. It's like my first live stream in 2 weeks. Where I was a bit of a busy bee, had other technical issues that prevented us from having our regular programming. And tonight, as a rebound show, I'm joined by Craig Gadd, also known as Camo, from Shooting the Breeze fame on Gunsight, as well as you head up the Quartermaster. I see you're wearing it on your buff there, Craig. Awesome to see you here. Thank you for sitting down with us. This is going to be a really cool discussion. We have lots to talk about. How are you keeping?
Gideon, thanks for the invite. It's a pleasure to be here. I loved your apparatus when you allowed me to write some articles and that. So it's an honor to be here. No, I'm doing well, thank you. I'm doing very, very well. Just waiting for the summer rains to start over here. And gaan on, eh?
Awesome stuff. So just to give people a background, in case they didn't read the description in the link below, your background is quite extensive. You are the founder of Sports Adventure Shooting. You guys are now affiliated internationally with a Finnish bunch whose name I'm not going to try to pronounce it. So that you've got that international affiliation. Sports Adventure Shooting has been around for close on a decade now, if not longer.
I know the one day we were at the Ranger and we put up, we had to cement something over. I actually graffitied the names of the guys there, and I think it was in 2010. I always go check there every now and then. Yeah, it was 2010. Yeah, so decade.
Cool.
Eh?
So basically 11 years of sports adventure shooting in Gauteng. It's a really cool discipline. In fact, for those who don't actually know what SAS is, not SAS, it's called SAS. Just give us the big picture overview. What is sports adventure shooting? What it's all about?
Okay, so when I started my journey with firearms, it started after a hijacking. I then found a shooting club, and there was a man by the name of Derek who showed me the ropes, and it was IPSC, and I really enjoyed it. Then my kids came along. I had some health problems at that stage, and everything just fell off the bus. And I was also in the commandos with Johannesburg West, part of the South African National Defence Force, and we support the police. It's essentially a reservist. Okay, what a commando is, protection of hearth and home. And we would go out and support the police, and then they shut us down. And I thought, now, where do you go to, first of all, to get an outlet for all the adventure that goes with something like that? And you serve in your country as well, which is honestly what I wanted to do. It's just understand that from the SADF point of view, they kicked me out. I was G4K4. They didn't want me. I was really part of the dregs. So, so obviously, and I looked around for some sort of sport. And I think the best I can do is sum it up is Boy Scouts with rifles. You have an outdoor sort of component to it, and you certainly have shooting. And you throw in as many types of varieties of firearms. So it eventually devolved into because you get other sports, they sort of like extended IPSC ranges, okay?
Yeah.
Over a kilometer of movement or shooting or something like that. But there's not much opportunity to shoot as a team or in pairs or something like that because it would be considered unsafe. And I agree for the most part, it would be. But it's really cool if you can do it with buddies that you've trained with, and then you can do some fire and movement. It can be done safely, but you can't be cowboys about it because, there's that saying that, big boy rules. I promise you, when somebody's got a hole in them, big boy rules are out of the picture, and they call the lawyers, and you can have an angry, upset mom or wife, okay?
Yeah.
So it can be done safely, but, you've got to train together to do it. So I came up with that concept, the concept of having a level. Let's just, for instance, a level 1 would be a 3.4 kilometer hike with some basic gear like a rifle, some ammo, 2 liters of water, some first aid kit. And then after that, you've got 4 minutes to get at least 10 hits on a paper plate at 100 meters. Okay. And what we found when we started is that guys would drive there. And I had the one gentleman, he fired off about 90 rounds and still didn't get the hit, but his gear was old and worn. It was an old M1 carbine, and he was like disgusted with himself, and he thought that we were a bunch of whatevers, But we've gone on there now, and now we do grading. So you start getting graded as your accuracy as a percentage and your time as a percentage. Okay. And then we had a level 2 where you carry a bit more gear, and a level 3, whatever. So, and then you would camp out, okay, with that gear. And it's a lot of fun. It's always summer, always raining when we do it.
And in winter, it's always cold.
Oh, yeah. And then
freezing.
What we had is for our annual competition, we would have the Delvillewood Memorial competition. The idea being there that you bring a bit of historical context to everything. You know, the Delvillewood, from a South African perspective, was really, it was a time of guts and glory for South Africans. And I think there's so little history that's taught. We're always taught to maybe be ashamed or not look at our history. And so we had the privilege in 2015, I think it's 2015 or 2016, when it was 2016, we had the centenary of the Battle of Delvillewood. And we actually all slept out here in the high veld during winter. And we had the chairman from the Delvillewood Association, or a member. He'd actually just come back from France. And he was really, chuffed that we were remembering our fallen in this way. So there's a lot more to shooting, but you've got to have the shooting. Eh?
Well, that's the thing. I remember the Delvillewood Memorial was when was the year you guys did the first one? I'm asking you difficult questions here.
Yeah. Okay. So our first one, I think, would have been 2011. It was Loki. I think we had 4 or 5 participants. Okay. And then we sort of going 2016. I think we had a lot of guys because it is the centenary.
Yeah. And you guys, the thing about sports adventure shooting is it's not it's a physically grueling thing. I mean, you have to have a minimum gear complement on your person, which is X amount of ammunition, X amount of liters of water, your actual rifle, plus your handgun, plus other stuff. And you have to do the hike, which was 3.4 Ks in a certain
40 minutes.
In 40 minutes. And that's not nice just down a road. It's through a veld, or it's relatively uneven, rough terrain.
Yeah.
And sorry.
I agree with what you're saying. There is a physical component, okay?
Yeah.
But it's not sort of, for a 20-year-old. For instance, when I was setting up the level 1, and I just want to say this, I had the concept, I started, but there's a lot of guys that have helped me on the way. We've got our current exco with Bushroy, Steve Tucker, and the whole exco that they've sort of taken over, and they're pushing it forward. But just to get back to the physical side, it's not impossible, okay? But you do sweat. It's certainly not going to be everybody gets a certificate of attendance at the end, okay?
Yes.
You have to sweat for this, okay? And I've seen some real gold come from guys that are busy doing it, and you see they are sweating, but they're pushing, okay? They're pushing. When I set this up, I failed the standard 3 times. I only got it on the 4th. This year, I've done it twice. I've done it 3 times. I failed the first 2 times, and a couple of weeks ago, I got my mojo back, and I managed to pull it off. It was just a hike that was, interfering a bit. But and my shooting was a bit better, so it can be done.
No, well, that's the thing. It's an achievable goal, but it's not easy, and there are multiple elements to it. So first is gear selection, figuring out if your stuff actually works for you, because you will be figuring it out on 3.4 kilometers worth of rough terrain hiking, and then you still need to get those accurate shots down range. And paper plate at 100 meters. I mean, sure. If you're someone that shoots rifle all the time, that might not seem like much of a challenge. But if you're someone like me, the first time I did it iron sights with an event fell that I just got. It was a lot harder. It wasn't remotely a cakewalk. It was a challenge, and I think that was part of it that I enjoyed about it, is that it was difficult. There's a reward in achieving a standard that's hard, that really makes you dig a bit deeper than you normally would and get to that level. And that's the thing that I quite liked about the spirit of SAPS. Also, you've had other journeys with it now. You are in the process of getting it accredited on its own? Because at the moment, your DSS is issued by, at one stage you had a affiliation with NatShoot. Do you still
Yes,
have that with it? Okay.
We've still got a memorandum of understanding. Okay, we helped them out of a tight spot at some point, and they've been grateful and very kind to us. And while we've been waiting for our affiliation to come through, or accreditation, okay, they've permitted us to work through them so that we can get our guys dedicated status in that. We want to legitimize the sport, so to speak. There was a time, and I still think there is a perception, a bunch of guys running around with no hair and a certain amount of gear on them. They're either airsofters, or if they're carrying the real deal, then what's going on here? And there is the sporting, there is the wonderful opportunity to test yourself. I'm over 52, 53. I could do that. There's youngsters out there, they've never had this opportunity to test themselves. You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
One time I really just felt so good about the concept is the one guy, he does a lot of patrolling, anti-poaching in his own time. And he came back and was like hot as Hades. I always say that it's the chairman's or the president's privilege to do the level 2 hike at 12 o'clock on New Year's Day. So you generally might have a bubble ice, and it is freaking hot. The one year I did it, I lost 2 kilograms in about 90 minutes because of the water loss. Anyway, so this fellow who does a lot of patrolling and hiking, he did this and he finished. And what we would do is we'd have a camp chair there. The guy would sit down. You'd take off his gear. Once he touched the pole, then you'd help him. You'd take his rifle and strip off all the gear in there, and then we just douse you in water. And he says that was the hardest qualification he'd ever done. Now, I give us a bit of a pat on the back, but to him and everybody else who comes and tries it, and especially the guys who fail and then they come back, it's awesome to see. It really is.
Well, that's the thing. And with that in mind, because I think with SAPS, if you're watching and you want to try it, speak to Craig. I will actually get your details, and we'll put it in the description of the video as well as put it on the screen. How people can get a hold of you. But you can also just Google sports adventure shooting. You're only going to find one.
Yeah, you can. We've got all our levels, the packing list and everything over there, and our gradings, how it works. So we'll obviously try our best. Obviously, we're not nationwide yet. To be honest, this DSS thing it's cost us close on 20,000 Rand at this point. And I'm asking, what could you do with 20,000 Rand as a sports association?
Sports development.
It's a lot of targets. Hell, we could do a group buy on ammo or something like that. But it's been really frustrating. So you can't go promote just. The idea is that we don't want to promote ourselves when guys will say, well, why must I belong to you if I can't get dedicated status in that? And we'll say, yeah, about this. And okay, so we're not making excuses. We're not dedicated. We're trying, and it's not through lack of trying. I tried in 2015. I took another sports association's application. I copied it in terms of the template. I included our stuff. I submitted it. They lost it. They found it. They lost it. And then they rejected it. Then we got together, put some money together, and we spoke to Francois de Kock from Francois de Kock Attorneys, and they did a submission. He took it, looked at it, made sure that everything was right, and so then we put it in now. Then earlier this year, I think that was in 2018, 2019 when they did it. So you only get rejected this year. So now we're doing an appeal. And the appeal costs more money. And Francois is going to handle it for us. We're waiting for a court date. The most frustrating thing about it is that you're going to wait. And apparently what the court might do or likes to do is they tell the cops to do their job. They don't like doing the admin for them. They say, give them a proper reason. And we're going to say, well, we're back to square one. They're just going to suck it out of their thumbs. Nobody's holding anybody accountable. And every time we appeal, it costs us money. So I don't know if it's through just sheer incompetence or intent that this is happening to us. We've ticked every box. We've got the international affiliation, everything. But yeah.
So sorry, my dog is going off at something.
No problem.
Loves doing it, especially when I'm streaming. the thing with regards to this, they've never given you, I presume, any relevant reason at all as to why they're rejecting your accreditation application.
Francois might be able to, he mentioned it to me. It was a lame reason. If you look at the reason, I think one of the things that we weren't affiliated internationally, and we said, but we are. Here it is, we're paying freaking euros every year, okay? We've got our contact. They're from Finland. It's the Sports Action Shooting Association in Finland, and I don't think you can pronounce it if you're sober, but we've got a wonderful relationship with them. We've had one of their members come out here. We're in contact with him regularly, and he's been very supportive of us. And we're truly, truly grateful for that. But, you know, why is it even necessary? You're trying to start something new. But you see, it's just one more of those hurdles that they put in front of you. And eventually they hope that you give up and go away. Well, we're not going away.
Well, that's the thing. And I'm hoping if there's anything we can do to maybe rally a bit of support around this for you guys. And I'm going to say why it's important. Sports shooting in South Africa, out of all the aspects that were attacked by the government's attempt to disarm us in this latest Firearm Control Act proposed amendment bill, they were never going to get it right with self-defense. That is just a shit angle of attack. The hunting fraternities are bulletproof. The sports shooters are the soft underbelly. And it's also the most important segment of South African society, because I tell you why. How do you encourage defensive gun users to become more proficient? You expose them to the variety of sports that are available. You get them involved in those fraternities where they get sucked into the community. They get taught safety. They get taught basic tactics. Not all sports equally. They get taught marksmanship. Their fundamentals get polished, and it's all done in a relatively supportive, structured, goal-oriented environment. It is so important for safe, responsible, lawful, and skilled firearm ownership in South Africa. It's such a powerful central foundational pillar that if you had to remove sports shooting out the equation, it would be a complete disaster. That would actually be the end, to a large degree, of this.
I couldn't agree more. I hate it when we start playing this whole my sport's better than you sort of angle. You know, IDPA versus IPSC versus what. There's not enough of us to have this argument. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's just grow let us get as much dedicated associations out there that can support their members so they can get DSS and get into it, you know. And these are places of responsibility. I don't want any cowboy wackos on the range with me. I don't. Okay. And that happens in my social life as well. I don't hang out with people like that, or I'd like to think so. But it's just, we need more of these associations. So I've seen this as part of the fight, but it's been so quiet. I mean, like I said, 2015, and you sit here and you keep quiet and you're hoping that, well, when we do get our accreditation, you'll be one of the first to know.
I will crow it from the rooftops. And it's the same thing. And Wilson, well, thank you for tuning in, sir. And I'm really trying quite hard to encourage more people to take it up, new gun owners, because a lot of them say, okay, cool, I've done my first handgun fundamentals course or something, but how do I keep it up? And, you know, the option is you're either going to try practice at home and go to the range once a month with a box of 50 rounds, which is already doing more than most people do, and cement the skills you practice at home on the range. Or what you can also do, if you don't feel you're going to have the self-discipline to do that, go sign up with the sports shooting fraternity and go shoot a gun game that's fun. And that'll force you to participate, because now you're enjoying it. You're doing something that's a bit more interactive than just training. See, I'm one of those sick people that actually really enjoys just practicing and training stuff I like doing. And if I could get DSS for just doing that, I would rack up a ton of points. But most people want that social element, and that's what the sports shooting gives. It gives social element to it. It's a skill builder. It's enjoyable, and we need more accredited associations. So SAS needs to get there, and I think Craig, if you wouldn't mind writing me something about that I also can publish, because I'd like to start something that we get a bit of a wave of public support behind your struggle with this, and that we get more people on board with this, because I think it's fundamentally important that you must succeed in getting your accreditation. Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks, Kieran. I certainly will. I'll do whatever I can, whatever it takes.
Awesome, because I think also from what I gather from the comment section, that is that's also what other people want. So it's a hell of a journey. I wasn't even aware.
I've had more than a few people contact me and say, listen, how do you do it? And I start out to say, listen, I thought I knew how to do it. I was given a template, I followed it, and now we're having to get hold of Francois. And even though he's a lawyer, I do consider him a friend in that, but it's not cheap. If you want money, if you want to do something, you're going to need money and support. And thank goodness the SaaS community, the guys have really been awesome. And we built up a bit of a war chest. And the exco have said, this is a fight with fighting, because it's legit. There's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, to be honest, I wasn't even aware that international affiliation was a requirement. I thought that's just kind of like a luxury, because nowhere that I could I ever find a list of what's needed to get accreditation.
Right. That's exactly right. And here's a pro tip: do not contact the NRA in America. My word. Seriously, I think when they see a .co.za, they think it's coming out of West Africa and somebody's there with a begging bowl to ask for something. I honestly got that. And I asked on some forums, and I was like shocked. These folks, they think that you're trying to scam them because you say you're from South Africa, which essentially means the whole of Africa, to somebody who's not geographically,
literate.
And I thought, wow. So we tried this, and thank goodness we made contact with Tapio on Gunsight, and just how's that? It was through shooting. We meet Tapio. He came out here. It was wonderful. You make good friends through the shooting sport.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And Helgout van Rensburg, who was at my fundamentals course on Saturday, also saying, not punting a specific sport, anybody wanting to shoot a match, contact your nearest club and pitch up on the day. IPS can still challenge. There you go. Start with the basics. You can do it as basic or as complicated as you want. Just the most important thing is participate, be present. There's no point in joining a club and not doing stuff. Like you need to make it worth your while.
I also think, I remember when I used to do skydiving. It's like I think I did about 10 jumps, but most of them, each one is at a different club. You pitch up there with the logbook, you show them the logbook, and they say, that's very nice. You're going to jump with static line. We want to see what you can do first before we let you do free fall, which is entirely reasonable.
Yeah.
Okay. So the clubs must have a way, like if somebody comes in, you take them under, you either give them to one of your members, and that member is responsible for training them, assessing them in terms of their safety, and just getting them into the club. They've got a point of contact. Or they must have a dedicated person who deals with new memberships, and that these people now understand what the rules are and they're assessed to see if they're safe. They should, like in IPSC or IDPA, you do like a qualifier or whatever it might be. At SAS, it's pretty much the same. It's a bit more informal. You come there, generally the guys come with some sort of shooting background already. Okay, it's very rare that you get a total newbie. There's always got some experience, but you just got to assess and make sure that everybody's safe.
Yeah, especially, the more elaborate the course of fire, the more you need those basic skills to be in place. Yeah. I think the past 3 weeks with the training I did, I've been muzzle swept more than I have in my entire life. And I don't think you ever quite get used to it. It always makes, the hair on the back of your neck stand on end a little bit.
You have to, if you taking guns and gun safety seriously, even though you get swept with an airsoft pistol, you still got to cringe, because it's, and to try to drum it into people, it's hard, and we all make mistakes and all that sort of thing. It happens.
And the higher level at which you do stuff, the better the opportunity for things like that to creep in unintentionally, because shit happens. And as long as his finger's away from the trigger, that's a good start. But you also had if you'd like to talk about it, this ties in with SAS a bit, an interesting interaction with your local cluster commander or station commander. And I'm going to say why I brought this up. I saw that before these so-called second wave of riots, on 23 August. And just to Shahid, thank you so much for sponsoring the show. You are a rock star. And it's good to see you again here in the comments, sir. Before this proposed second wave of rioting on 23 August, Gauteng Vispol sent out an instruction. I have it on PDF, which basically instructed cluster and station commanders to mobilize their community patrollers and their CPFs in a support role in the event of things going sideways. So they had to make contact with these community structures and formally get them in place, which to me was, I suppose, as close to an acknowledgement as we were at this point going to get from the authorities that armed citizens are a security asset and that they're actually relying on us in some form to ensure law and order is enforced, in the event of total chaos breaking out. What would you like to tell us about, if you can, tell us about your experience?
Well, when the riots were sort of at their peak in KZN, the AfriForum and the CPF put out a call that there was going to be a meeting and who can help in that. Gideon, I tell you what, there's a huge park here somewhere in Randart, and we reckon 300-400, maybe close to 500 people pitched up, cars. And, you got to do the whole social distancing because you don't want this to become a super spreader. There's always people out there that the COVID fear mongers. We had so many people sign up with us. And previously in that week, one of some of our patrollers were in a certain section, and they were the cops were having there weren't enough of them, and they were getting stoned. And our patrollers were there.
With rocks, not with dacha, just to clarify.
Yes. And they were there. They introduced themselves to the commander, and they said, "This is what we've got. We've got rubbers, shotgun." And he said, "No problems." We had a drone, and the problem went away. Myself and a very good friend, we were out on the Monday night. I must say, when I woke up in the morning, I listened to the Zello conversations. It was like those scenes from the movie where you're utter chaos and there's nothing that you can do. Anyway, so we started to patrol, and then we try to protect a shopping mall on the outer perimeters of our town. The idea being, if this goes up in flames, well, what's next? And we got there, and I came around the corner, and I just heard the stuff landing around me. It was all rocks and everything. And made some noise there, and it stopped. We made some noise again, and then some guys used some rubbers as well. Anyway, at the end of the week, we got a very nice message from one of the colonels or whatever, and he thanked us for what we'd done. Okay, now it wasn't just me. There were many, many of us. And the community had put money together. We bought this drone. A drone is something else when it comes as a force multiplier. It keeps everybody safe because you don't have to go look around that corner or behind that building or in the felt where where the bad guys are. And you can use it. And the drone pilots are licensed, and they've got the airband license, so they can also talk to aircraft. So all the boxes are ticked. There's no cowboys or anything like that. And I honestly believe if it wasn't for us, things would have got a lot worse. Okay, and I'm not saying me. I'm just obviously representing, talking about AfriForum Alberton at the moment. And I'll be honest, that was a nerve-wracking week. You feel sick to your stomach. What is going on? Now you've got to go to work after patrolling at night, and then now you're 30 kilometers from home, and you're watching the WhatsApp groups. Is something going to happen? Is something going to happen? Thank goodness it didn't, but we still had to patrol.
Well, that's the thing. And, that was a community structure that existed for a very different purpose originally, that was then very effectively mobilized and coordinated and worked in conjunction with law enforcement. You guys got the results. And, it's heartening to hear of the fact that the police service, at least, when you start moving away from top management, I don't have anything nice to say about them. And I think for the sake of diplomacy on this particular broadcast, I'm therefore not going to say anything at all about SAPS management or the minister. But from a certain middle management level down, there still seems to be individuals who really want a good working relationship with their communities and who appear, from what you're telling me, to see value in mobilizing those community security structures.
A week after that particular incident, we then got called. They asked for volunteers. They were going to go look at some zamas, the illegal mining.
Yeah.
And so this is something that very close to my heart and my neighbor's heart. And we thought, okay, we're going to get you because we don't want our houses and everything. It's amazing how they'll dig up anyway, and they're extremely violent. Yep. Anyway, so off we went, and we met up with this policeman. And we first met at a security company. Then the first thing I want to know, is this legit? What's going on here? Then there was a sergeant that pitched up, black sergeant, and there's all of us. And then, they want to go look for cable thieves in this one particular area, but the area is so big that they never have enough resources. The police on their own do not have enough resources to cover it. So they'd heard about us the previous week, and it had been, relayed via the sort of jungle grapevine. And off we went. And I checked. The cops had 2 R5s. I was the only one who had a rifle. There was 1 or 2 shotguns. There's some pistols, and then there's the paintball and the pepper gas gun and a blank firing gun. Anyway, you got to work with what you got. Everybody's a volunteer. Everybody was wearing bulletproofs, and we used Zello as communication, and then we also used our own handheld radios, for which we got licenses as well. And we then deployed to an area, and honestly, Gideon, it was like something out of a Sending Vietnam movie. It's like
that takes me back.
Yeah. What's it? Mission Vietnam or whatever.
Yeah. It was in Afrikaans. It was called Sending Vietnam. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. And it's like you're moving through the veld into this dense, thick bush, and you hear the gurgling of a stream. And then you move down into like a little ravine in there. And the idea was that both sides would then close up on either side of the ravine. I use the word stream loosely because it's just pollution. And it is just littered with cable and debris of cables that have been stolen, and then they strip them over there. And with the drone overhead, we were able to identify one guy, and he was arrested. Okay, and the cops booked him in, and we got quite a few kilograms of cable back, and we then took it back to the police station. And this particular sergeant he said he was so happy. He was actually worried about our attitude. If there's going to be any cowboys there, it's everybody skitskop and donor.
Yeah.
It was very well controlled. Everybody behaved themselves. Nobody got hurt. Everybody went home safely, and we made an arrest. And I'm sure when the cops talk to this gentleman who they arrested, I'm sure they'll be able to find out where they go sell the scrap and all that sort of thing.
Well, that's a big success story. Those are 2 big success stories I think you shared with us tonight, which again, it appears that there's a good working relationship where you are, because, Wilson points it out, zamas are so dangerous. There's that infamous video that was circulating on Twitter. I think I even shared it, about some Basotho zamas. I'm not exactly sure where they were caught filmed dancing with AKs. Yes, and they were essentially saying in Sesotho that, they're not afraid of the small boys, as a reference to the police, and that they're waiting for the army to come for them. And I'm like, yeah, you're not dealing with small time, garden variety criminals here. You're dealing with pretty serious, like very, very violent people who, aren't afraid of the police or law enforcement.
To give an example, in terms of the zamas, with the quartermaster, I get a lot of interesting customers, and I love to hear their stories, and I try to put them on our blog. And this one particular customer, he was from the Northwest, and they got mines out there, and they got their own problems. And he said, zamas. I thought, yeah, if you get too close, I'll shoot you. But, over 100 meters. He says, what do you mean? These guys are taking out their spotlights at over 100 meters away. Okay, now that shows some level of shooting ability, and also
especially, I was about to say, especially with if you consider that the stuff they're shooting with is probably not that well looked after, per se. That's not bad going. Shooting at spotlights at 100 meters is.
I've always tried to. I've asked the question before. I don't know what the longest legal self-defense shooting range, where there was an incident between an attacker and a defender, and at what the maximum range was. It's like, now, let's say it's 100 meters. You've got Zama shooting at you from 100 meters away. Okay, that is now an illegal attack on you. It meets all the things. What are you going to do with your pistol? Nothing.
Yeah, I had this discussion with a student, and they're like, what's the longest legitimate range for a self-defense shooting? And I said, well, there is no such published thing, for the very simple reason, you don't even need a felt. If you're standing anywhere that's open, even if it's a parking lot, and there's somebody with a rifle 100 meters away shooting at you, you're under very big immediate danger at that point. Yes. You would be justified, if you can take a clean shot at that person, to return fire. This similarly goes for 300 meters. You could very easily be taken out by a person with a rifle at 300 meters. The answer to that question hinges on what is the nature of your problem. Why, who is shooting at you, and why.
Exactly. I mean, imagine you stumble into a cash in transit situation. I'm not saying get involved. You've got to judge it, because you're going to have to make decisions very quickly what you're going to do. Okay. And generally, if you don't know what you're doing, I don't have the answers to that, but at least have the capability of reaching out to those sort of ranges, and to underestimate your sort of attackers, to say, oh, well, they're just a bunch of dope heads on your pair. No, it's not happening like that. When this guy told me from the Rustenburg area, I thought, whoa, this is different now. The guys have got some skills, and they've got the equipment. Okay. And if you look at the cash in transit heists, people use the word professional when they see these guys. They're not professional. They're scum. They're scum because of what they're doing. But they do seem to have some sort of background, some sort of training, and even will to fight. And to think that they're going to run away after the first shot, those days are gone.
Yeah, they've got a skill set, and they've got the equipment, and they've got a predatory mindset. They are therefore highly dangerous.
I think another aspect, I'm not an expert, but I think you've got to take into account muti. Now, obviously, muti doesn't work, but that doesn't matter if the person who takes it believes it works. Okay, if he believes that the bullets are going to turn to water or something like that. I read that book on cash in transit heists in South Africa, and the one had to hold, apparently, if there's children listening, please block their ears, a penis. Okay, the Sangoma gave him a penis and said, you must hold this and you will have success. And at some point during the whole op, this bloke then swapped hands of this bloody thing. And
sorry, I don't know why I'm laughing at it. It's morbid, but yes, he swapped hands.
They then caught him and some of the gang. And when the author did the interview, she said, why did you get caught? He says, because I swapped hands. He honestly believed that as an article of faith. What do you do? How do you negotiate with somebody like that? Can you deal with somebody like that? I don't know.
And I'm also, not really that interested in finding out the hard way if I could avoid it. But I mean, you did some close range negotiation last year yourself, in your defensive shooting incident, which is a harrowing story. And I know you've spoke about on Ramon's show, and you've I think everyone that follows you knows about it. But if you wouldn't mind just giving the audience maybe a short version of it, because it's one hell of a story.
Listen, I'm happy to share the information, because I sincerely hope that folks can then also understand that you can pull through. Okay.
Yeah.
Ideally, in a gunfight, it's ideal if you don't get shot. But even if you are shot, it means you can pull through. So, what happened? It was the 6th of October, if I recall, around about 6 o'clock. I was expecting a colleague to arrive to work, and we'd share a ride. And then at some point I also took something out to our dustbins, these wheelie bins. And I've got one of these nice strong gates, and I left the gate open because I was expecting my colleague to arrive. Literally, he's very punctual. Thank goodness that day something went wrong and he was a couple of minutes late. And so I left my car idling in the driveway and the door was open. So I was now in the wedge of the door. Okay, so the vehicle door is now open. I'm standing in the V of the door, so to speak. And I was, as I told Ramon, I was on la-di-da land. Okay, I'd done my prayers that morning. I was in a very spiritual frame of mind. I was busy wrestling with the whole idea, how can you turn the other cheek, but at the same time be crucified? So I was really in condition sub-white. And I turned around, and it was somebody, and there was a gun pointing at my waist. I got such a fright. And I used the term scream like a girl. I screamed like a girl. Okay. And for some reason, I don't know, I saw his eyes just look to the side for a fraction of a second. And I still cannot tell you exactly why I did what I did. But before I knew it, I'd drawn from concealed. And my first 2 shots were center of mass. And because my driveway slightly sloped, I was going forward. I couldn't go left, right, or backwards. And, you always try and get off the X. I don't know. So we went forward, and I just kept shooting and shooting. And then suddenly it felt like my gun, there was nothing there. So that terrifying dream that you have if you train regularly, that the gun becomes like rubber, or the bullets fall out, or it disassembles itself. And then on the way down, I felt this punch in my leg collapsed. So I thought, okay, I've been shot. But I've gone from total fear and panic to some other place. I can't explain why. Okay, people say training. Yes, I understand that, but I'm not trying to claim anything super in that. And I felt shot. Yes, okay, I'm shot. We went down. I fell on top of him, and he was still trying to bring his pistol around. It was a copy of a Browning high power, I think a FEG or something like that.
Yeah.
And I remember, just like we do at SAPS when we did combatives, I put my hand underneath the barrel, I clamped his hand in on the butt, and levered it out. And got it out, and I was just going to do whatever. And he literally looked at me, and like in the movies, that last breath, and he flopped back. And and then I managed to pull myself up into a sitting position against the concrete wall. And I realized that I saw one bullet hole. And this is, I think, which is really interesting. I mean, obviously you speak to the medics and that. I saw one bullet hole, but I'd actually been shot 3 times, once to my testes, another one very close to my groin, and then one just sort of above my kneecap. And then one through my hand, which then also exited through my shoulder. Just that little roll of fat. Yeah, that if you bring your arm up like that, and you feel that little wrinkle of fat there, probably not you Cape Townians. I've got a lot of fat on me, and it literally went through there, in and out. All it needed was a plaster. So I then, it wasn't really painful at that time. I called for my family, they came, and then a security company arrived, and my daughter came, and she said, "Daddy, what must I do?" And I remember also, this is, thank the Lord. I knew where my first aid kit was with a tourniquet in it. It was lying around in a typical mess, all your gear's always all over the place. And she brought out the tourniquet.
I was about to say guilty as charged.
Yeah. So we put the tourniquet on as tight as you can, and then it started to get sore. I think I passed out twice. You start to feel, honestly, Gideon, you just want to go to sleep. I know I was in shock. Okay, it's this beautiful sleep that you just want to sink into. And then they put a blanket over me, and then I did pass out the one time, and my wife got some Coke, and they just wet my lips. And honestly, it cut through the grayness. It was amazing. It sort of just perked me up. I've gone back on the WhatsApp. The first message went out from my one neighbor. She's now left overseas. What about 6:05 shooting? And then there's a voice note at about 20:06 from one of my friends through AfriForum, where I'm being loaded into the ambulance. So 20 minutes. I was at the emergency room then by about 6:45. And I honestly don't know that. That's ideal. Okay, I had a group of friends
about to say,
rallied for me. It's awesome, man.
The tourniquet is so important. It's there to get you to the hospital.
Yep.
Because you have seconds, you get the tourniquet on, and now you've got a couple of hours maybe.
Yeah.
But that's.
Well, I didn't. The other thing is, I didn't know that there were more bullet holes in me. Okay, you don't feel. Well, I didn't feel each one individually. I felt one, but in fact, it was three. Okay, then plus through the hand, plus through the shoulder, and I didn't have fine motor skills. So if you do have a tourniquet, also unstrap it. Okay, strap it only through the first buckle. Don't let it do the dive through the second loop as well. Then you can't, if you've got one hand, and if you're on your own, you are going to be applying it one hand if your hand is shot. So many guys get hit in their hands when they've been in a gunfight. Okay, and I've done that stop the bleed course, in about 2019, and it was that information that get a tourniquet and keep it. And my advice to anybody who carries a gun, you're carrying a gun because you anticipate that one day you're going to have to use it. And you might end up with holes in you as well. So get that sort of gear and keep it nearby. Keep it nearby. Carrying, there's so much gear on us already. But put in your car so you can send somebody to fetch it, or keep one at the office. I don't know. But keep it nearby at least.
That's it. It can save your life. And it sounds like... Craig, that sounds like how close were the two of you when the shots started flying?
There are powder burns on his shirt. There was powder burns on his shirt.
That's close.
Yeah, it was. If I'd had a knife, it could have been a knife fight. But I don't know why. I've always trained with the gun. I used my pistol. You didn't see the sights. It's going to be, the way I've seen it, this was let's put it this way, spiritually and psychologically, this is probably one of the most intense things I've ever been through. Okay. And I'd like to think that I'm over it, get on with it. The guy who shot me, I forgive him. I prayed for him that day. And I think that was one of the things that helped me get through all the nonsense that usually follows. But I think there's three types of gunfights, if I can remember. There's the one that you go looking for. That's when you're a policeman or a soldier. You're actually looking for a fight. Okay? Then there's the one that you'll stumble into. Like you're driving along, there's a cash in transit dust, or you walk into a store. And then there's the one that I find, it's the one that comes to you.
Yeah.
And your awareness levels at that are zero, because that person has come so close. So this is where your physical barriers. If I'd kept my gate closed, it was a non-event. They would have moved on. They would have gone somewhere else. But for some reason that day, everything seemed to line up. Okay. So you must prepare for it in that manner. If you're going looking for a fight, sure, grab more gear, grab more ammo, grab the medical, have an ambulance and stand by, whatever, if you're doing it properly. The one that you stumble into, that's your awareness levels anyway. Then the one that comes to you, whoa, you are going to be on your back foot. So now you're going to get a fright. Then it's the whole fight or flight syndrome. And how you decide that, how you make that decision, I do not know. I do not know what made me choose to draw and carry on from there, because the fear was absolutely numbing. I'll tell you what, it was absolutely, never mind getting swept with a gun.
Getting one, yeah. It's a very different place. I've got an interesting theory on that, but before I unpack it, also another camo, you can please get in contact with me. I would gladly help you out to get the people armed and ready. I'm going to just pop my email address on the screen, and I'll keep it there for a while. Let me just actually type it out properly. And then you're more than welcome to just pop me a message, and I'll get in touch with you. So, Pule actually asked a question about your comment, Craig, about kind of assuming, well, why shouldn't you sleep when something like this happens? I presume when you are about to pass out from shock.
Yeah, the blood loss is a real thing. Okay,
Yeah.
and that's you start to get cold and the shivers and everything. And honestly, if it wasn't for the blanket, you hear of people are dying of shock, and I think I would have died of shock. Okay, so you stop the bleeding, but now I start going into shock because I haven't got enough blood in me. So what had happened is the paramedics came there, and in anticipation of them getting there, I've donated quite a lot of blood. I was busy pumping my hand up here, and I was, get this thing in, but get this thing in. And they managed to get one in, and we squeezed it in. And that was part of I sort of knew that do this. I'm not a trained medic, but you've got blood loss, you need fluid to replace it, to bump up your blood supply.
And that blood is cold as well,
yes,
which
yes,
is also
a thing. Yeah. So I don't know if that's answered the question, but you also, when you come off adrenaline, I've seen it before. To give an example, a couple of years ago, we simulated an accident at Sports Adventure. What we did is every day, every time we start off with a prayer, a briefing, and a medical plan. So, okay, guys, this is the senior medical guy. You keep your keys on you in your left-hand pocket or wherever it is, because if something happens, we're going to put you in your own car and your buddy's going to drive you to hospital. You have the coordinates of the hospital so we can get you there. And everybody has to be on board with this. But usual things with briefings, everybody's, yeah. So we decided we're going to do a bit of a test. And I got some chicken livers. And I walked, and there were only two other guys that were in on this. I think Steve was and Tracer. And I walked to the front there, and I faked like an AD, obviously safely in that. And then I like collapsed. And then suddenly everybody was like a headless chicken. Everybody. And then they roll me over and they see all this goo and gunk lying there. And headless chickens. And then at some point, Steve said to them, okay, boys, this is a training exercise. Just think. So that afternoon, we have a bra, and you just check everybody. They are out. They come off this, you have a crash, okay, from the adrenaline. The same thing is going to happen in a fight now. I don't know how quickly you come off adrenaline, but there were two other guys that ran away, and apparently there were two vehicles. So I would say at least there was another 4 or 5 of them outside. They could have easily come in, picked up the guns, and overwhelmed me at that point. Okay? But praise the Lord.
That didn't happen. I was about to say, Abdul says you drew on a drawn gun. You took the chance where it looked sideways. Glad you survived to tell us and help us to be more aware. And Floyd says,
point is, I'm really not trying to blow my trumpet or anything like that. Because you're shot does not mean you're dead.
Exactly.
Okay? You carry on fighting. Fight. It's like, what are you fighting for? You're fighting for your own life. Okay? You are important to somebody else. If you do not get home tonight, there's going to be at least a mom and dad or a girlfriend or a wife or kids that are going to be very sad because this is what you're fighting for. Because you're providing and protecting for other people. I know I get the sense that sometimes we shouldn't be talking that way. I get, but this is the reality. What are you fighting for?
It is the reality.
It is a reality that you're fighting for. Now get it into your head that this is a cause worth fighting for. Your life is given to you. You are unique, okay? And we're not going to live forever. But there are many ways to die. And I pray I don't die a coward or get featured in a Darwin Award one day, okay? I really pray that, and I pray that for everybody. It's awful that we have to think like this, but with all this fear, there comes the opportunity to do something virtuous. Okay, I cannot tell you exactly why I reacted like that. Was it reflex? Was it instinct? I do not know. I just pray that if it comes to the worst, push through it.
Well, that is, I constantly steal from Dave Spalding, but that is the essence of the combative mindset. Is it starts with the seed of you understanding very thoroughly and firmly that your life is worth fighting for, that you must prevail, and that your mission every day is to prevail over the circumstances that seek to kill you and to win. Not just to survive, but to actually win, because according to him, surviving is too low a bar. But what I think contributed largely to the way you reacted, and it's something Brian, Minnie, and I spoke about a lot, is the concept of stress inoculation. That's why you send pilots to simulators every 6 months. Yes, it's very important to own their emergency response skill set. But far more important than that, it also has a huge psychological impact in the sense of it primes them into a behavioral pattern for when things go horribly sideways. So that your first reaction isn't blind panic that consumes you. It's the same with other avenues where you put people under pressure, make them uncomfortable, and force them to solve complex solutions, simulating, of course, that these problems they face could be life-threatening, and simulating as close to real as possible. And I think that's one aspect that SAPS did. It's a lot of the stuff that you yourself are busy with. You inoculate yourself against stress having a stronger effect on you than on others, and that is going to definitely allow you to respond more effectively, especially when you already have the right mindset. So I think everything that you've done in your life has built that foundation for you, possibly. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Well, to me, the irony is this: you train your whole life, but you have to get shot, and then people start listening to you, kind of thing. Ideally, I shouldn't have got shot. Ideally, I should have been more aware, all that sort of things. What I'm trying to say is I was absolutely in the back foot. Obviously, yes, I've had years of training. I consider that I've got some of the best friends in South Africa through sports adventure shooting. The stress inoculation that you're talking about is hanging out with guys of a similar mindset and training hard, where we do combatives. It's basically wrestling with guns, loaded guns. It can be done safely. You don't just do it first time on the line, and you get two guys to sort of wrestle you into the ground. The idea is not to break you in that. I hate the idea of somebody getting hurt in training, especially if it's civilians.
Yep.
What's the point of that? But they put as much pressure on you, and you find that after your second or third stint on it, you start to realize, okay, you've got a gap here. You're actually now starting to think, as opposed to just getting overwhelmed with everything, physically overwhelmed, and then emotionally as well, because it's a very odd thing to be wrestling with a loaded firearm in your holster. Okay.
Yep.
And you've got some big guys and they fall on you and you've got to get off them. And then when the RO calls clear, he then tells you to engage targets that you don't know which ones are. He tells you pink, yellow, or 1, 2, and 3, and you've got to now think through that. And
that's the thing. And that's all part of it, is the fact that so the technique you're talking about, using physical exertion, but sort of adversarial physical exertion as a stressor, and then clearing that stressor off safely off the line, and then getting you to perform a complex task with a gun in your hand by shooting at a numbered or colored or whatever target that is then identified for you. It's an exceptional. That is exactly what it is. That is stress inoculation. I think man of the bush. Please tell me, is this Bush boy with a new handle?
Yeah, it would seem so. I don't know. Maybe he's a bit gender fluid or identity fluid. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Or age fluid. Well, it's good to see you on the net again. So it's been far too long. Helgaard says, cannot talk out of experience, but from 8 years of reading first accounts from people made on gun site, you'll always be on the back foot. 33% did get seriously injured, but continued fighting and survived. And I think that's the thing. Just because you're injured, you're not out of the fight, but neither is the other guy. If he's got a hole in him, he might not be out of the fight either.
It's the old thing. You've got to switch the lights off. Okay, so it's either going to be up here, or you've got to do it through the pump. Okay, and even though I landed 2 shots there. My attacker still had three seconds of spark left in him, and he managed to pull off about 8 shots, 8 or more shots. Okay, and that old adage, shoot until it changes shape or catches fire. It literally is that. The one thing is, I remember clearly I was falling and I was just pulling the trigger, and what had happened is my hand, if the firearm's pointing that way, my hand had been hit over here. The bullet entered at the more or less just below the tip of my trigger finger. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, on the over there. Okay. So the gun was spun out of my hand. The gun itself wasn't hit, I believe. And now my hand is like sort of, and I'm falling as if I'm flying with my hand out here, and I'm pulling this trigger like you cannot believe. And I working. It's like, give me my stuff. I want to go home. Honestly, it was this thought. And whoops, and landed, and then got his gun. And then I remember seeing later, I saw my Glock lying there, and I thought, but it's the trigger's in the forward position, so it's cocked. Now, how come when I was pulling the trigger, it wasn't working?
Exactly.
Only like 3 days later did I piece that the gun was actually shot out of my hand.
And you didn't feel it leave?
No, there's actually a shot from me that is flying far to my right-hand side, and it's tracking upwards through my garage, through my new roller gate. Seriously, my driveway looks like a crime scene sometimes. I walk there to just check the bullet holes. The kids tell me I must cover them up, but I don't know. It's a good memento. But anyway, so yeah, weird things happen, and you just got to push through it. Because you're hit, because you're hurt, doesn't mean you're down. I reckon most of us who work behind the desk have got physically a 15 to 30 second worth of fuel or gas in us to fight physically. And after that, our condition is just going to deteriorate very quickly. And our attackers are, by nature, they're going to be, I think, younger and more prepared. And like you say, predator, they're jackals, they're hyenas. Okay. And the evidence is that they're not running away. Okay. They're not turning around at the sound of the first shot. So you've got to push through that.
That's it. And I think that's a great sort of note to retire on for the evening. But I would love to have you back for more, Camo, because these are great discussions. And I want to do some more talking about sports adventure shooting and about your process, and revisit this in a couple of weeks' time. It really is. This was an awesome discussion. I thoroughly had fun with this. I hope you did as well.
No, thank you. I did. Thank you.
And guys, go check out sports adventure shooting. Google it. It's an amazingly cool discipline. I really want us to give them support. In fact, if there is a way we can get you support, Craig, just pop me a message. We'll write something about it. We'll do follow-ups. I think it's important to get another accredited sports shooting association on the map. Especially, considering how important sports shooting is. I actually will talk to you about this offline, but there is a campaign I'm planning that is non-partisan. It's not under the banner of any organization. It's literally just an attempt to get awareness about the importance of sports shooting out there, and for these organizations to get the message out, why they matter and why people should make use of them. So I would love to have SAS on board with that as well.
Okay. Thank you, Gideon. And Gideon, I just also personally, for me, thank you. I know we met on Gunsight all those years ago, and what you've been doing. And it's strange how life's paths take you, but you're doing good work as well, and you keep it up. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Craig. I appreciate it. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in tonight. See you again on Thursday with Hofu, Temba, and Floyd, where we carry on with the gun rights discussion. Have a super rest of your evening, and see you guys all again soon. Cheerio and bye.